Life Audio.
Christian Parent Crazy World with Catherine Segars is brought to you by Life Audio and is part of our Faith Toolkit series. For more inspirational faith-affirming podcasts, visit lifeaudio.com.
Welcome to Christian Parent Crazy World, the podcast that tackles tough topics to help you be a godly parent in an ungodly world. I am your host, Catherine Segars, and in today's episode, we will tackle this really tough question. How do we protect our kids online? Yeah, that one keeps us up at night, doesn't it? All the ways our kids can potentially find danger in cyberspace. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how to protect our kids from pornography by building an internal filter. And in this episode, we will be talking about how to establish strong external filters to protect our children with our good friend, Kristen Jensen from Defend Young Minds. That's the plan for this episode of Christian Parent Crazy World. So let's get started. We have Kristen Jensen back again to help us tackle the tech to protect our kids in cyberspace. Now, just to remind you, Kristen is the #1 best-selling author of the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures series of read-aloud books. They are amazing. My kids and I both love them. Kristen is also the founder of Defend Young Minds and the executive producer of Brain Defense, which is a digital safety curriculum. These are some incredible resources designed to help parents and kids protect young minds from online threats. And just a reminder, we have a giveaway for a set of Kristen's incredible books, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. These books will help prepare your kids for the moment they encounter pornography. Because, it's going to happen, moms and dads. We want them to be prepared. Now, as I explained in the last episode, I have never understood addiction so well. You're going to want these books. Now, this giveaway is for my subscribers. To be entered for this giveaway, just respond to last week's email on how to talk to your kids about pornography or this week's email on how to protect your kids online. And if you aren't a subscriber yet, never fear. Just go to catherinesegars.com and subscribe. And then you can just respond to the introductory email saying you want to be entered for the giveaway. I am going to be drawing a winner for this giveaway on Friday, June 28th. Okay, so with that said, let's jump right in. Kristen, welcome back. It's so nice to have you back on Christian Parent Crazy World to discuss digital online safety when it comes to our kids.
Thanks, Catherine. It's great to be here with you.
Yes, that last episode, you guys, if you missed that one, we tackled the tough topic of pornography. Be sure to go back and check that out, mamas and papas, because Kristen made it so easy to discuss this very sensitive topic with your kiddos. But now we want to turn our attention to the mechanisms that can introduce our kids to an online addiction, bullying, porn, sexual predators, extortion, and any number of other online threats, not to mention the threat of addiction to the technology itself. Right? That is addicting in and of itself. But there are so many ways that our kids can be harmed by this technology. And we as parents need to be aware of that and have safeguards in place and guidelines in place to protect our kids. So, Kristen, obviously, technology has a lot of good things to offer our children. I have a child who has ADHD, and being able to listen to her books on a device has really helped her with her schoolwork, with her studies. I personally love that too. I listen to a lot of books I like to call them books on tape. They're not on tape anymore. They're just recorded.
Old
school. Yeah. But I love how you describe technology in the introduction to Brain Defense Digital Safety, which is a program that you have on Defend Young Minds on your website. You compare online technology to a sharp knife. Used properly, a sharp knife is a very good thing, but used improperly, it can be very damaging. So why don't we talk about that a little bit as we're talking about digital safety, the good things that this has to offer, but it's a minefield. It's dangerous when put in the hands, especially of teenagers and young children, isn't it?
Absolutely. As parents, we always are worried about our kids' physical safety.
Mm-hmm.
We will try to live in a safe area. We will take them to safe parks. We want them to go to safe schools. But just think about this. Let's say you want your kids to go play at a park. You want to give them some time outside. And when you imagine being in New York City, going to Central Park and saying, hey, kids, have fun, be back by 6, you just go explore. You go find yourself, whatever. You have fun. We would never do that.
No.
Right? And imagine if right next to Central Park, there was an international airport where people got off those planes and just went into the park. Well, anytime your kid is online, on a game, any kind of device that has a connection to the internet or an app that goes into the internet, any of that, your kid is now basically in a park where anybody in the world can come and influence them, deceive them, extort them. And we just so I think the first thing I would want parents to do is to kind of shift their mindset, because we can't imagine, well, my kid is just up in their room,
right,
playing
mm-hmm.
a game. Like, how could that be dangerous? Well, there are a lot of ways it can be dangerous. And just to name a few, there are predators. They can locate your child. Your child can give them enough information that they can locate your child. People in your town can find your child, especially if you've been posting pictures of your child on social media. They can locate, and they share information as well. So there's the risk of physical predators finding your child. There's the risk of physical predators when they want to befriend your child. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a 13-year-old boy. He, again, playing video games, met a friend. Kids are so trusting, met a friend. And within a few days, this person, who was an older man, not old, he was probably in his 20s, actually, he had lured this child to come and meet him.
Mm.
And they drove a couple of states over. He was gone.
Wow.
And it was a gas station attendant that saw like an APB or, some alert, recognized the child and was able to call police and save that child. 13-year-old boy totally put himself in the hands of someone who was going to traffic him. I mean, you can make a lot of money off a trafficked individual. And this kid was from a good family, stable. So it can happen to any kind of kid. You can do that. And then kids can be sextorted. They have these sextortion rings that are very, very sophisticated. So they'll have one person that's really good at making friends with you and finding the kids that are on devices a lot, out playing games a lot. And they will find that child, start to form a relationship, a friendship with that child, and then hand it over to the next person who the child thinks is the same person.
Right.
And this person now is really good at starting to get pictures from that kid.
Right.
To teach the kid how to do it. Third person is really good at extorting. So you better, sexual pictures and threatening the kid. Mm. And all the time, this kid thinks it's their trusted friend. And it's really 3 different individuals that specialize in these like evil steps. And I'm telling you, kids are no match for these very trained, highly motivated. And it used to be just for pictures. Now they're actually going after money because they know these kids can have access to money. So I've heard several reports of kids committing suicide because they just had run out of money. They believed all the threats and they just, couldn't handle. So what I'm saying is there are physical dangers in digital spaces. And we're not even talking the addiction. We're not even talking, some of these other things. There are physical dangers that come along with these in these digital spaces, besides just the terrible influence it can be on their minds.
It is. It's shocking. We did an episode recently on social media with Dr. Walt Mueller, and we talked about the Surgeon General's report. I saw a lot of articles on your website on that topic as well, of the addiction. The average kid, a teenager, is on a device 3.5 hours a day. Some of them are over 5 hours a day. Many of them say that it's almost constant connection. And so we're going to go over some guidelines in a little bit that we can give to parents to help them. But of course, a lot of these are on your website as well. But those ideas are shocking, that this is the kind of threat. You know, it's like, well, my kid can swim really well, so I'm going to put him in the deep end of the pool. But there are sharks there, okay? There are sharks there, and we don't need to have our kids swimming in the deep end with sharks all around them, because it's just ripe for an encounter like that. You were sharing with me an encounter just before the show and the break that I would love for you to share with my listeners, because I thought this was, I can't even believe it. And as a parent who, my youngest now is 7, but I've had 5 kids, I get it. You know, sometimes they get bored with the keychain, right? Shaking the keys, and they want to move on to something more interesting. And so often parents will just give a kid a phone, a toddler a phone, a 3-year-old a phone. And you shared a story about a 3-year-old that I found mind-boggling. Why don't you share that with our listeners?
Sure. Well, I just want to go back and say, you know, it was a mom that came to me and asked me to write Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior.
Yes.
She came to me and she said, do you have anything for like preschoolers? And I felt like someone had like punched me in the gut. But then I looked around and I saw so many 3-year-olds on iPads and other devices. And so, yes. So, yeah, I was asked to speak at a conference, an early childhood ed conference. And they wanted me to present Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. And we also have a wonderful play guide that was developed by play therapists that you can download for free with the book. And you can use this to, you know, just really, I would say, just make it even more powerful as you teach these concepts. But anyway, this woman came up to me before my class and she said, you know, when I saw that your class was going to be here, I was shocked. Like, why would we need to be talking to 3-year-olds about this? But then she had an experience. Someone in her circle had a 3-year-old. They found that the child had recorded videos of herself naked. And that was very concerning to them. And they were starting to like, what is she doing? Why is she doing this? But then they found videos that she had taken of herself trying to have sex with the family pet. So they thought, okay, she must have a hands-on predator that is, you know, grooming her to do this, right? To produce these videos and whatever. Well, they couldn't. They got the police involved. I even thought it was the FBI might have been involved. They could not find any evidence that this child had a hands-on perpetrator, that's good. But they found it was porn. She was looking at pornography. Kids are imitative. And so she was imitating what she had seen. But now her little mind was just filled with, you know, a version of sex that is just so
distorted,
toxic, distorted, degraded. And so I know it's a soul-crushing story.
Oh my gosh, it is.
But it is something that shows again how technology is so dangerous, not only physically, but also mentally. And there's evidence that kids that look at pornography, especially girls, there's been studies that girls that look at pornography are much higher risk for starting sex earlier and doing more risky sexual behaviors. So all of this is to say that the physical landscapes, the physical neighborhoods, the physical places that our kids play online can be quite dangerous. And we need to be as concerned or even more concerned about those spaces as we are with their physical, you know, safety. The digital safety and the physical safety need to be, you know, in balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that on Defending Young Minds, you have a very healthy section in your article section on tackling the tech, because I think this is where so many parents, probably even millennial parents, although I think they may be a little more in tune with the Gen Z technological advances that happen with that generation. But, I'm in Gen X, and then the grandparents that are in the baby boomer generation, we feel like this generation gap is so huge. Like, how can I possibly wrap my mind around all the ways that this technology can harm our kids? Because on the one hand, we're using it so much in their educations now. I just mentioned an example of my daughter who has ADHD. And then, that's a whole other topic, what happened in 2020 when we forced all of these kids online. And I had an episode earlier this year with Dr. Rondi Smith, who has a ministry for women who have been sex trafficked. And she talked about how her organization had been contacted in 2020 because when all these kids got forced online, the predators were just sitting there, just like at kids in candy shop. There were so many kids getting forced online, and they had so much more access to these children now because they were in those digital spaces that we needed to keep safe, and parents weren't prepared. Schools weren't prepared. So you have a very healthy section. There are dozens and dozens of articles that give guidelines and parent alerts. And there was a really, really cool article I loved on busting the myth of digital privacy, because that's one of those myths we have, that our kids deserve digital privacy. It's part of their dignity somehow. Right. And that's something that's...
no, they don't. Actually,
no, they don't. No, they don't.
They don't deserve it. And they really don't deserve it, because nobody deserves to be given more than they can handle. And so this idea that they somehow need their privacy and that we can only respect our children by giving them privacy, that is, I'm sorry, but that is wrong. That is a myth. That is something that we could just kick right out of our mind, because kids actually need guidance, mentoring, and they don't need privacy. And, when my kids were young, I would tell them, look, you have from now until you're 18 or financially independent.
Right.
We're your parents, and we get to make the rules. And that's just what our stewardship is. And then you have the rest of your life. I put my arm way out. You have the rest of your life to do whatever you want to do, make all your own decisions. But we're trying to set you up, to make good decisions. And these rules are, that's why we have these rules. You can tell your kids, look, you're going to have privacy after 18 or financially independent, whichever you want to say, until, for the rest of your life. But for now, when you're just learning how to be safe and how to use technology to your best advantage, which it is a wonderful tool, we're going to set some guidelines, and we're just going to make sure you're ready. So I recommend, we have some, like you said, we have a whole section called Tackle the Tech. Many of the articles there are like evergreen, like they're just principles, right? Other articles are very specific, like here's a comparison of the 4 safer phones that you can buy for your child. Here's what about the watches that are out there? What we have.
And you walk people through how to do parental controls on different apps and different devices and streaming. So I think that's really helpful, because a lot of times we feel ignorant or unprepared I'm not in a technical field. My husband is not either. Our kids know a lot more about technology than we do. And yet we're the ones that are charged with guiding and governing them and protecting them. So sources like this are really, really helpful. So where do we start then with tackling the tech for keeping our kids safe?
Yeah, so getting educated about the devices that they have any access to. You really do have to do your due diligence. You are placing in their hands. Well, one principle I would say is don't give them a phone. Don't give them an iPad. Don't even let them buy one. They should not own it. They should have access to it. Right?
That's good.
And only when they're maybe an older teen,
right?
You then, but you are paying for it. You are paying for their service, and you are liable. If they have something on that phone, like child porn, which is just pictures of, you can be liable. And you can start to see the courts becoming more willing to make parents responsible. There was a recent case of, I'm going to blank on the name of the child, but he got a gun and he killed 4 people, and both the parents being tried, to be responsible for those murders because they allowed that child to have a gun when they knew he had mental issues, whatever. So I'm saying that you as a parent are responsible. So give your kids access. Don't give them a phone, because in their mind, if they have something and it's theirs, then they can do whatever they want with it. No, they can't.
Access, not ownership, right?
That's one principle.
Excellent.
And again, monitoring your child's device does not invade their privacy. It is something you need to do to monitor them. You need to mentor them. I think another myth is, oh, my kid would never do, fill in the blank, right? My kid would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
I trust my kid. Well, you know what? It's not that your kid isn't trusted. It's the world out there that is so alluring, that is so engaging. And like I said before, these people that specialize in, hooking your child and pulling them in. There's an FBI just came out with a warning. And did we already talk about that in this episode, or did we do it prior to us taping this?
I think it was prior.
Okay, so let me tell you about the FBI. They came out with a warning. And what they found is that there are groups of sextortioners. They play like they're kids, they pretend to be kids. They isolate a child. They find a child that's playing a game that is open to the rest of the world.
Right.
And they start to make friends with that child. And so now this child, I have these friends. Mm-hmm. But then they start to normalize, sharing inappropriate pictures, right? Nude pictures of themselves. So now this kid is with this other group of kids. They're his friends or her friends, and they're all doing it.
Right.
So there's that peer pressure and also the normalization. And so now the child gets pulled in to sharing those pictures. And once that child starts, there is rapidly a succession of steps before that child is being groomed to share sexual. They're going to share videos of him masturbating or videos of, whatever that they can use then, put up on websites, and then that's there forever.
Right.
So, again, there are very sophisticated techniques, and our children they're trusting, they're not sophisticated, and they can get pulled into these things. So I really warn parents, even if your kid says all the other kids get to play this game, I would be be very careful before you allow your child to play a game where anybody can contact them and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
That is just, you wouldn't, again, would you leave them in Central Park?
Right.
And say, anybody that gets off a plane or from anywhere in New York City can come and talk to my kid?
Mm-hmm.
No, you would not.
No.
So same for digital spaces.
Right. So those games that they're playing, the gaming, a lot of times they're playing with their friends, but what can happen is someone can infiltrate that game. Someone can be introduced into that game that is not in their friendship circle. That could be someone who is a sexual predator. A lot of times they're posing as if they're 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds or whatever. Right. And they endear themselves to your child. They get to know them. And then they're very good. This is what they do. Okay. This is what they specialize in. Yeah. They are good at enticing kids. I had a story recently on our show of there was a young man who posed as he was in his 30s, but he posed as a 12-year-old from a neighboring school. And he said, I'm going to kill myself if you don't send me a picture of yourself naked. And then when she did that, he sent her own father's phone number. He was actually a distant family member and said, if you don't meet with me every time I say we need to meet, then I'm going to show this picture to your dad. This happened when she was 12. It continued through all of her teenage years. She was in her 20s before this was exposed. She was in college before it was exposed. This was the entirety of her teenage years. I love this example in that article on the myths. I'll post this in the link section. There was a parent it was a tale of a regretful choice. She said she had an 11-year-old and she thought, not my kid, never me. This won't happen to me. But after she discovered on that phone that she allowed her 11-year-old daughter to have inappropriate images, sexual content, interactions that seemed like grooming, profanity, mean girl behavior. And she said, this is what she said, I am less than proud to say that I am that parent who thought my 11-year-old daughter would be different. And she wasn't. Everyone was right. And I royally messed up. I found all of the things that I was warned about on her phone and have since taken away all electronics. She will not be getting them back. My question, she says now, is how do I undo all the crap that the technology world taught her? How do I salvage what is left of her 11-year-old spirit since I allowed her to see and experience too many things on her phone? How do I repair my daughter back to her sweet 11-year-old self? And, she talks about how she trusted her and how she was a great kid, smart and funny and
great kids.
I know they are. And this is what I thought really stood out. She wasn't different. I never should have put that burden on her to be so. We put a burden on our kids when we think, not my kid can't fall for that. There are people who are experts at grooming children, who can get into those gaming circles, who can get in through Instagram. Not as many kids are on Facebook, but the one that I talked about earlier, it was a Facebook connection. So some kids are on there. So they are getting through there, and the dangers are great. So what are some of the other guidelines that we can take away to help our kids, to help us to tackle this tech and to help our kids be safe when they're online on these digital devices that we hand them and we just, too often we just walk away. We need to be engaged. What can we do?
Well, first of all, like I said, you have that mindset, oh, my kids know so much more about technology than I do. Doesn't matter. You have wisdom, right? And that's what you need to impart with your kids. You need to work with them. So you need to step up and be the guide and be the person to talk to. So I would say that, first of all, again, we want to teach our kids digital defense skills. And that's, again, good pictures, bad pictures will help teach kids a definition, a warning, and a plan for pornography. Brain defense will help teach kids more information about healthy tech habits, we do touch on predators. We definitely touch on, pornography and just being a good digital citizen. And then when you get into the technology and filtering tools, right? So there's home routers that have parental controls. One of them is Griffin, and we have a link to that on our. Another one is filtering software.
Right.
And that is Canopy is one of those that we recommend because it uses AI to blur images instead of just blacklist whole websites.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to just say one thing. It only works on the web browser, right? Mm-hmm. If your kid has apps are very difficult to, follow through. So I would just say that they're making some headway, but I think that there's certain kinds of phones that are safer that you can put more software on to protect them. But Canopy is definitely worth a look at. And then safe smartphones. We have articles about, there's the Bark phone, there's the Gab phone, there's the Pinwheel phone, there's the Trumi phone. And all of them have their pros and cons. And you can take a look at our comparison of those phones. But to give your child a full-on smartphone because they want to have an Apple phone like all their friends, I just really wouldn't do that.
No.
iPhones are the hardest ones. They don't let other companies come in, but Android phones have a little bit more flexibility in that regard. But again, look at these other safer phones. And then again, monitor. Bark has a monitoring software. Really question whether your child needs certain apps and go on those apps yourself.
Yes.
You know, when I went on Snapchat posing as a 13-year-old, I was pretty shocked by what I found. I found teaser videos where, you know, they were pornographic, but they were advertising even more pornography. There was a girl that would, on her channel, she would actually find boys through a dating app, and then she'd hold a contest, and the winner, you know, she would meet them and have sex and video it. And that was for her premium subscribers, you know, and this is years ago, right? This is not just new. So
wow,
there's so much on Snapchat that you don't want your kids seeing. And there's not, like, Snapchat has made they have done some things to help parents, but it's you know, for every app that your kid has, you've got to go in as a curious 13-year-old. And again, I wouldn't ever give a child anything before them, because even the social media, you know, companies say, this isn't for kids under 13. So if you're letting your 11-year-old have Instagram,
right,
basically you're saying to your 11-year-old, it's okay to lie. That is going to come back to bite you.
Yeah.
So I think, and I wouldn't give it to a 13-year-old. It's a burden. The mental health ramifications of social media, we are just learning more and more. So, but whatever you give your child, you know, the technology has to come paired with that internal filter, the training.
Yes.
And just realize that the kids in their digital spaces, there are people out there. And we don't tend to, like, I don't know, I just think we don't like to think that there are these evil people out there. We like to feel like most people are good, you know? Well, there's a lot of bad people. I'm sorry, but there are. And they're doing bad things. I'm not saying they're unredeemable. I'm just saying that they are out to get your child to make money and to use and abuse and exploit your kid. So let's just make sure that we are going through the devices that we give, the apps, and really knowing what they have access to so you can train them. If you're going to allow them to have a certain app, you're going to want to know what's on there so that you can, you know, warn them and have discussions about it. What we give to kids, the access we give to kids, is way beyond their developmental ability. You know, I've talked with a developmental pediatrician. So he's like a psychologist for kids. And he would get cases of kids, you know, they have anxiety, they have depression, you know, they have all these mental health issues. They're doing self-harm, et cetera, et cetera. And he started by actually restricting their digital, like restricting digital overuse. And he said it was like immediate. Like the next time, you know, 2 weeks later, the kid is feeling 80% better.
Yes.
You know, their anxiety has come way down. And now he speaks on digital overuse all the time. And so honestly, our kids' access to technology is, I think, in many cases, doing more harm than good.
Yes.
So we have to really look at that.
Yeah. I mean, like if somebody said, I have this little mechanism you could hook onto your child that's going to increase their anxiety and depression by 80%, you would be like, no. We put it in their hands, right?
Hard pass.
Yeah. Very hard pass. And yet that is what those devices do. And so I love these. I want to end with these 7 rules, essential rules, and a few extra ones that I found for new tech to safeguard your child. This was a December 5th article that you had, and your Tackle the Tech section on Defend Young Minds. I thought these were excellent places to start in terms of helping to safeguard our kids with all of their technology. One, you said devices are not allowed to, and I've said this before on the show, not allowed to go to bed with kids at night. I would say that up until the child is an adult. Because we've made mistakes before, and I'm like, not again. We are going to make sure that our children, like up until the time they're ready to go out on their own, maybe if they're an adult in my house, I might allow that. But, you know, while they're a child in high school, not graduated yet, not an 18-year-old, Do not allow your kids to go to bed with their devices at night. They get recharged in our bedroom. That's what we do. 2, establish how much time each day they can use the device and stick to those guidelines. 3, kids should put down the device the first time parents ask for attention. I love that one. I had not seen that one before, but yes, they need to put that down when I ask for your attention, because if they can't, that's showing a little bit of a sign of there's something drawing them an addiction.
Yes. And sometimes they'll get angry.
Yes.
Right? They'll get angry. And that's a sure sign. So train them that I expect that when I ask for your attention, you give it to me, because people are more important than devices.
Who's right in front of you?
Right? Relationships are more important. Is the technology hurting your relationship or helping your relationships?
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes they're using that technology to communicate with people they have relationships with. But the person in front of you is who should have your attention. And that sign, if they're not able to put it down, or if they get angry, could be a sign that there is an addiction there. But it also could be a sign if a child goes ballistic or has a breakdown with the thought of taking that away. They could be in a relationship like the young woman I talked about earlier. She went by the name V, who entered that sextortion relationship with, well, actually not sextortion, but sexual predator, had been in that relationship with her all of her teenage years. Well, she would kind of freak out if she wasn't able to meet that appointment, that standing appointment she had with him, because what is wrong? She's afraid that she's going to be outed and all of these pictures are going to be shown, and it had progressed to videos at that point. So if there's some sort of a problem if you take the device away, it could signify something much worse than just an addiction. An addiction is bad enough, but it could be much worse. I love you said number 4, designate no device zones and times. We need some times where we're just away from this, and not just the sleeping hours. Sleeping hours are a given. Never have them in the rooms with your child at night, but also other times.
Yeah. And let me just say, even as adults, I have issues with sometimes insomnia. I took my phone and it used to just be right next to my bed, because there's a part of your brain that knows there's a source of dopamine right there,
Right.
And you think of things like, oh, I forgot to text so-and-so. I forgot to do this. I need to look this up. And then you pull your phone. And so even as adults, I put it in our master bath.
That's good.
And it is there.
Yes.
It's amazing how much better I slept.
Yes.
Because my brain could kind of disconnect. Now, it still was loud enough to wake me up for the alarm. But I mean, if your kid needs an alarm, there's this old school thing called alarm clocks.
Yes, I've heard of those. I grew up with them.
Yes, you could get an alarm clock, and they don't need their phone. Having them recharge the phone in your space is great. But let me tell you, even kids, I've heard of kids sneaking in with a phone, getting the phone, even when it's like a fingerprint will open up the phone, grabbing their mother's fingerprint, but all while she's sleeping to open the phone.
That's crazy.
And that is a real sign of a child that is, addicted either to device or to the thing that they're looking at.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Number 5, you had here, parents have access to passwords and regularly check up on the device. That is so important. This whole myth of digital privacy, that somehow our kids deserve to have their privacy on their digital devices. Heck no, hard no. We need to have those passwords and be monitoring them. 6, inform a parent right away when an inappropriate content is encountered on the device. Have those conversations. Make sure kids know that we are a safe place that they can come with that information, whether that's a pornographic image, something they feel is off in terms of a relationship that could potentially be grooming, or, any other number of things that might make them uncomfortable, bullying, making fun of. That really plays into a lot of kids' psyche when there being posts online, about kids where they're being bullied online. Yeah. That has led some kids to kill themselves. It's been, horrible, horrible stories. We've all heard those stories. So make sure that they know we're a safe place that they can come, that we're not going to overreact to a situation and cause it more damage, but we need them to have that open line of communication. And 7, establish the consequences if they break the rules. If you try to use my fingerprint at night in order to get on your device, we're going to have you're going to have that taken away. A few other things that I found while I was doing some research online: make sure they keep passwords private, that they're not giving those out online, that they know that any discriminatory, inappropriate, hurtful, embarrassing, bullying behavior is unacceptable, and that they need to tell an adult. Obviously, they don't need to share any personal information ever online. Don't download anything online. If something needs to be downloaded, make sure a parent is involved with that.
Because so many downloads can be malware. Yeah,
they can be. And you talked a little bit about the technology that we can use, and you have a lot of great articles on that, which I'll be posting links to those sections in the show notes. Spend time. This was a good suggestion. Spend time with your kids online. Just spend some time with them there. Model healthy online habits yourself. If you are addicted to your phone and to your devices, go figure. Your kids are probably going to model that behavior. Think before you post. We need to keep, once they get older and are able to have social media access, which I think should be much older. I'm thinking more like 17, 18 potentially range before they have those apps on their phone, but then have the conversation. Okay, what I'm posting here, this lives on. Do I want that sentiment, that thought, that idea, that image to remain forever online? Because they do.
I have seen videos, and I'm sure you have too, of like parents that have taken videos of their teenagers after they've had wisdom tooth pulled, and they are still under kind of sedation and they're kind of acting all silly. And, we laugh, but it's like, does that kid really want that video forever more on, out there? So I do think there is now a wave of, parents, let's think about the images that we're putting, and we haven't even talked about AI and the dark web and how they can take your child's image and use it to, make pornographic pictures. And it's not your child, it's their image, but AI can reassemble. And so be careful. My daughter actually has been very good about this. She will not let me, so I have 2 grandsons. She will not let me post pictures of them on Facebook or Instagram. If I do, I have to blur out their face or put a little, happy face sticker over their faces. And I'm really glad that she's been very careful. So, I don't get to brag about how cute my little grandsons are, but that's okay. And she set up other groups, messenger groups, and other groups within our family that we can share those photos with our family.
That's a good idea.
But we don't have to share them with the entire world. Why? I think that we are becoming more conscious as parents of what really should be out there. And I think we need to be much more careful with what we're posting.
I think you're right. I need to reassess that. I have posted some pictures before of my kids, and I've kind of been back and forth on that one. That's something I think I probably should reassess there myself on my own Instagram account, which I don't like social media very much. I'm one of those people who's like, oh, I've got to do this. And, because they tell me I'm supposed to do this to promote my stuff. And I'm like not one of these people that's naturally inclined to it. I'd much rather I'll be listening to the one social media app or thing that I do get kind of sucked into is I love watching apologetic videos on YouTube. I can watch them all afternoon, it's pretty healthy. They are a little addicting because you keep watching more and more, but I'm like actually learning stuff. But those are things that we really need to consider. Who should have access to pictures of our kids? When you think about it, okay, so if I knew that someone was a sexual predator, I wouldn't invite them into my home and give them a photo album of my children. No. And yet you may potentially be doing that when you share pictures online. So if that's the case, then
who really wants to see your kids? Who do you really trust to see your kids? And I think if you set up some kind of private group that you could share those in, that's totally appropriate. And like I said, I think there are more and more, these like mommy influencers that, are starting to blur out their child's faces when the child comes into the camera. They're afterwards, they're blurring it out, and they're not going to be exposing their children in those videos. There's definitely a growing pressure to do that. So, yeah, I think we're getting smarter and wiser. And so that's very hopeful because you just don't know. Again, we think people are good and we want to believe the best, that people are bad. And it's sometimes hard to realize that there are people out there that, are doing evil things. And like I said, it's not that they're irredeemable. I'm just saying that they are doing harmful things to your child. And we hope that at some point they get their act together and they stop doing these bad things, but they're doing them and your kids are at risk.
Yep. You're absolutely right. I've got a couple of little guidelines I want to end with here. Make sure we educate our kids about the risks, the digital footprint that we were talking about, the threats, predators out there. And a large part of that has been covered so beautifully in your books, The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, but also talking about other threats that are out there, groomers, predators, things like that. I like this one. Teach critical thinking skills. Help your kids to think critically and evaluate the credibility and safety of online information. Teach them to question what they see and be cautious even going forward into adulthood with sharing any personal information online. And I put this one's really big. Keep kids in sight when they're online. Most homes are going to have a computer for their kids these days to do their schoolwork. We're really blessed to have this lovely house. We have a whole room designated to be our classroom. And at first we put the computer in there and I'm like, no, computer's going in the dining room in the center of the house. There was a way it could face like the outward wall where you could only see the back of it. I'm like, no, it's on the other side of the table. I want to see the screen. I want to see what you're looking at. Yeah. And what is looking at you. Right. So make sure you do that. One of the guidelines talked about how you should cover the camera when you're not, if you're not using it for a particular purpose. I remember from the Snowden document, actually it was a movie that was made on Edward Snowden. They showed how people were going in through those and they can see into your home, into your house through that. Yeah. Monitor. Make sure you're going into the apps and, we've had that situation before in the past where a kid hid an app on a phone. I didn't know it was on there and they had gotten an account. And so make sure just because it's not displayed doesn't mean it's not there. They may be accessing it some other way.
So there's one app that is called Hide It Pro. There's a bunch of them, but they're vaults. And basically they look like a calculator. And it does work. The calculator works, it can do all the functions of a calculator. But when you put in a code, it opens the vault, and these been around for years and years and years. Opens the vault, and that's where they can store inappropriate pictures, videos. So the thing is they downloaded that app.
For a reason.
And they know what it is, but you just don't think, oh, it's a calculator, right? Well, again, you've got to be very careful about what they download. And again, like you said, don't assume that don't put that burden on your child of being the strongest kid that will never, be enticed to do anything, So I think believing that, but also, these devices, they are designed by the top people in all of these fields. They get, neuroscientists, they get neuropsychologists to make these devices and apps more addicting.
Yes.
And, what I've noticed is that now they have got shorts, reels, on all of the social media apps, and you can just keep scrolling through them, but you never know what's coming up. And I've done one and then the next, and then all of a sudden I've got someone being obscene and saying words that I don't want to hear. And it's like, you don't have any control. It's not like there's a rating, on these reels or YouTube shorts or whatever. So again, just be very careful. And I think if we could just slow down a little bit, not feel like we want our kids to be like on the cutting edge of technology. Let's pull them back. Let's make sure they're outdoors more. Let's make sure that they, are interacting with real people. We talk a lot about this in brain defense, having that balance. So slow down, pull back, reassess. Even if you've already given your child a thing, you can go back and say, this actually isn't yours because we pay for the month, right? You have access. This is actually ours. We gave you access when we gave it to you. Making those distinctions, you can pull back, you can reassess. Every general in every army in every battle does this, right?
Thank you.
They try something and then, that didn't work. Let's pull back.
Yep.
And let's reassess our strategy.
I love that.
You can do that as a parent, and I would definitely recommend that you do. We do help you tackle the tech on defendyoungminds.com. As you said, we have many articles there. Some are just principles, guidelines. Others are how-to. Also on our Instagram, even though we don't recommend Instagram for kids.
Yes.
Another term for Instagram is Insta porn. And
thank you.
And also there's sex trafficking rampant on these, as you mentioned before. But we have a thriving Instagram community, and we have lots of reels and lots of explainer videos and all kinds of things there. So we have just so many resources for parents. You don't have to do this alone. We can help you. We want to help you. And you can do this. You can do this. Don't get overwhelmed. Just take it step by step. Start today. Get our How to Talk to Kids About Pornography. Go to our website, look at the articles. Begin that, process of educating yourself, getting the facts, then arming your kids, and then continuing those conversations. And your kids will be blessed. They will be blessed.
Amen. That's awesome. So awesome. Kristen, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today to discuss the dangers that our children face online. Moms and dads, be sure to check out Defend Young Minds. Look at their wealth of resources. And you yourself, go ahead and follow them on Instagram or any of the social media and Facebook, wherever you happen to be. You can follow them, and your kids can, as they grow into adulthood, perhaps get on there as well. But this is an episode where you're definitely going to want to check out all these show notes. I'll have links to the guidelines, the articles, and Defend Young Minds, and where you can pick up a copy of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Technology can be a beautiful thing, moms and dads. So much amazing information at our fingertips, but it is truly a double-edged sword. We need to protect and guide our kiddos if we want them to steer clear of all the dangers. Thank you so much, Kristen. You've already given us the information where to find you. It's defendyoungminds.com, right?
Yep. We'd love to have you come and use the resources that we have spent years developing. And this is my mission, This is my mission, to give back and to help parents in this space. And come find us. Just get started. It's not as hard as you think once you take that first step.
Yeah, that's so true. Just take the first step. And then you'll start to learn all the ways that you can help to protect and guard your kids online. Thank you so much again for helping us to do that, Kristen.
Thank you, Catherine.
Alrighty, don't forget about that giveaway for my subscribers, moms and dads. Again, all you have to do is respond to last week or this week's email, or the introductory email if you are a brand new subscriber at catherinesegers.com to be entered for a chance to win a set of Kristen's books, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Jr. They get 2 huge thumbs up from me and my kiddos. We'll see you next time. I want to thank you for joining me today. Look, I know there are a lot of things you could be listening to right now, and I really appreciate that you took this time to spend with me. I hope you will join me for my next podcast when we take aim at some aspect of our culture that threatens to derail our parenting and steal our kids' faith. If you enjoyed this episode of Christian Parent Crazy World, would you consider telling a friend and sharing it on social media and giving it a good review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and following me on Facebook and Instagram? Oh, and maybe you could say that Christian Parent Crazy World is the best podcast you've ever heard. And you're entire life. Just a thought. And be sure to check out my website, which is KatherineSeegers.com. That's Catherine with a C. I have lots of articles and resources there that will help you on your parenting journey. And if you subscribe, I will be sure to send you some really cool free stuff and notify you of future podcasts, articles, and blogs. I want to end this and every episode with a word of encouragement. God gave you your kids, your specific kids, for a reason. That's because you hold the key to unlocking who God created them to be. We'll see you next time.
Christian Parent Crazy World is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review this podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.